Mr. Chairman, I also want to ask, the nominee cannot do the job alone. He needs competent people, as he stated. The sub-institutions that are going to work under him. 19 of the Act says that we need to have the investigation division. Then the C also says that we need to look at the prosecution division. Can you share with us what you're going to do to make sure that you get the quality that you need to be able to investigate and also persecute?
Mr. Chairman, this is a good question, but you see, I've been accused of personalizing things and acting one man. This is going to be an office, and I would rather think that we should wait for the full complement of the office so that knowledge will be shared, and then we will do a collective action. But one thing I wish to assure you is that we will employ investigators who must be independent and impartial. Prosecutors must be independent and impartial. We will take them through vetting, and I'm hoping that civil society and donor community who are all interested in the excising the canker will help us to put in place the best staff and instill the best culture so that when I leave, it should be able to go on. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, your last.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I want to continue from where you ended. When you leave, it should be able to go on. When the bill was passed into an act on January 3rd, there were speculations trying to think about who other can be the choice of the president, until your name was mentioned. So when you leave, can you share with us people in Ghana you think are of your quality?
Disallowed.
Okay, thank you. No, I'm not done.
I have one more opportunity.
In your CV, you were handling a non-profit organization. How do you finance it? Handling it in court where you have to file with costs incurred and other stuff. How do you finance it?
Unfortunately, it was set up 17th of September 2017. It hasn't undertaken any serious activity. When I was invited and this offer made, so it hasn't acted. But before then, I was doing most of the things from the little Senate benefits I was getting, and then from the little money I had collected when I left office, even though much of it is still outstanding. So that's how I went to court. I never accepted donations because I didn't want anybody to influence what I was doing. And even after I had won the cases, people wanted to give me money. I said no. You didn't send me there to go and do it. Don't try to take part of the credit by giving me money after the fact. I don't need it.
Something I hear or something. Honorable, I'll come to you after. Yes, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the Honorable nominee is quoted to have said that NDC appointed Charlotte Osei to rig elections. In the article, he went on to quote him, she was appointed by a corrupt government precisely because of her incompetence. That made her susceptible for use for an election rigging agenda. Can the nominee provide evidence for this assertion? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the problem is that there are privileges here, so we can ask questions and get away with it. I can give answers and get away with it. But I'm immune once I'm sitting here. You see, But the subject person you are talking about is cases are sub judice before an investigatory commission. And it would not be fair when there is no adversarial approach here in whatever I will say and a response from her. As a lawyer, it will be the worst thing you can do to her. I would have wished that at the time I said this, and during the time the government was in power and I was saying this, they had asked their CID to pick me up, and then I'll make a statement, and then we would have seen whether they could have won a case in court against me or not. But it is too late in the day. When they were afraid that because I'm from the same pond with them, or I was stepping on some stone, which I could throw. But I don't think it is fair for anybody, for me, when the fellow's case is sub judice before a committee, to come and be talking about it.
I have two more questions.
I can ask several questions. Mr. Chairman, I think that the matter that I raised was about the appointment of Mrs. Charlotte Osei. Not the case at the court. That NDC appointed her to rig elections. This is not in court.
Honorable Samson Yahe. Honorable members.
This is not in court.
Honorable members, the nominee's answer is that if he was to provide the information he has, it will be prejudicial to the investigations. I'm not in a position to rule on his statement because I don't know the information he has. And I think his answer is acceptable. If you proceed to ask, he has the floor, still has the floor. So please proceed. Please, let's work in accordance with the rules we agreed. You will get your turn. If you want to do a follow-up on that, you get your turn. Please, Amzahi, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, again, the nominee is quoted to have said that former President Mahama is sabotaging corruption fights in Ghana. And to quote him, he noted that President Akufo-Addo's inability to tackle corruption, as promised, is due to the NDC moles in the ministries who are misadvising the ministers responsible for dealing with issues with corruption. Can he tell us how former President Mahama, who is out of office, is sabotaging the effort of the president to fight corruption in this country?
Yes, Honorable.
If the statement he made is true, anybody can say that it is defamatory, right? So I don't think that I want to answer that question in the face of this parliament. I have made statements about President Mahama's government. They're on my webpage. He was in government. He could have dealt with it. He didn't deal with it. And I'm not going to answer this question after he's out of office.
Chairman, I decide which one you answer or not. Sorry, Honorable Nominee.
Very
but
well.
Can you listen to me? Were you stating a fact or writing an opinion? If it is a fact, then you're liable to substantiate it. If it's an opinion,
I was stating a perception.
Yes, Honorable, proceed.
Anyway, Mr. Chairman, in the critiques of the honorable nominee, he indicated that the establishment of the Office of Special Prosecutor President Prosecutor's Office as a body corporate only serves to add another bureaucratic layer to the prosecutorial authority of the AG. He went on to say that the AG office is seriously understaffed and underfunded, and that the budget will be burdened further with the creation of the office in issue. Are those views still relevant, especially when the clause 1 of the bill you critiqued was maintained in the Act as Section 1?
Mr. Chairman, as you call it, it's a critique, and it was intended to persuade Parliament to act otherwise. But when you want to attribute a statement to somebody, don't read it out of context. In the very paper he's referring to, I stated that the president has given, is under moral compass and integrity of president. It's on page 6 to 7. I stated that what the president wanted to do was doable, and every patriot must help him to achieve it. As an objective critic, I give the pros and cons. I am not some pseudo lawyer who gives one side of the case. Even in court, I state the case against me, and I state why my case is superior. And that's what I did. I said that this could have been done, and I would have thought the Attorney General and the DPP should have done it. But the president has given an electoral promise to the people of Ghana, upon which he won the elections massively. He is duty and morally bound to comply with his promise, and that it can be done within the confines of the Constitution. If you read the two together within context, what he's attributing to me is a half-truth.
Yes, Honorable Obiama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Martin Amidu, congratulations once again. I want us to look at Act 959. I don't know whether you have your copy here.
My papers are many, but go ahead.
Yes. And I want us to start with Section 71 on plea bargaining. There are various provisions on plea bargaining under Section 71 of the Act, Act 959. If I may be permitted to read just some aspects of it. 71.1 says, a person under investigation or charged with corruption or a corruption-related offense may voluntarily A, admit the offense and make an offer of restitution, or B, admit the offense and offer to provide information that will aid in the arrest and prosecution of other persons whom that person knows have committed or about to commit corruption or a corruption-related offense. Now, the special prosecutor is giving more or less a blank check as to whether to accept the offer of restitution or consider if the offer is acceptable to the prosecution, even though eventually the court may come in. If you look at 71.4, in considering whether the offer is acceptable, you are required to look at the history, level of cooperation, willingness, likelihood of obtaining a conviction, etc. One, what's your general opinion about this provision? And two, how do we prevent abuse under this provision?
Mr. Chairman, we should go back and look at the offenses the special prosecutor can prosecute. Out of the 10 offenses listed with the general provision that other offenses, 6 of them are misdemeanors, 2 are felonies, 2 are unclassified. So for me, the issue is not necessarily wanting to fill in Sawam with people. One of the issues of prison administration is to reduce the number there so that we don't spend money feeding people whom we shouldn't feed. So I see this plea bargaining thing as a good incentive for those who want to make reparation for the consideration of the court and go and sin no more. The office will have to take into consideration all the grounds upon which reparation must be accepted. And the reparation must be reasonable, because the reparation eventually will come to the knowledge of the people of this country. Even though we can't ask all of them questions, in doing that, our minds will be tuned to what is reasonable. And when we get something which is reasonable, the court will endorse it. And we are hoping that if we can get monies back, what's the use imprisoning him when you can't get the money back? If he agrees to get the money back only for a conviction and probation, I think that is better for the nation than imprison him 10 years, feed him 10 years, give him prison clothing, you know, and then he may have, if he is grown, he will have chronic conditions, and you'll be sending him to hospital up and down, and the president may be compelled to give him an early pardon. So if he will bring part of the money or all of it back, and it's reasonable, that is the thing I love about this section. So that those who think that the office is just going to be there, locking people left, right, and center, will realize that the office will act reasonably. And it's only cases which is in the national interest after investigation to prosecute, that will be prosecuted. But when people realize they are false and say, "Mea culpa, through my fault, through my most grievous fault, please, I will pay reparation." Why not? I mean, even God forgives, let alone we. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, the second question will be on Section 77, Mutual Legal Assistance. The section says the Mutual Legal Assistance Act 2010, Act 807 applies. With your experience as Attorney General, for a long-standing experience, Deputy Attorney General, I'm sure you are aware that this section is to look at how persons in public office may want to send their assets abroad, including funds. With your experience, how do you think we can benefit from this?
We can benefit enormously from this. You know, there is an international something on politically exposed persons. And if you even open an account in certain countries like the UK and America, they ask you to fill a declaration of consent that if questions are asked about you, the bank is at liberty to provide them. Right? So mutual legal assistance gives us the opportunity for those who think they are smart enough to put their monies and go through the Kotoka International Airport because they are exempted from very critical screening and deposit them abroad. We will trace them, right? And then they will have to decide whether they will come and pay reparation or bring the money back, or we deal with it. I don't want to talk. I was Minister of Interior, so I know the security and intelligence methods of doing it. We will use these methods. So those who think that they've hidden something abroad, maybe they don't need to approve me. Because if they do, I will find it. I have the capability. I've done it before. And under my if you approve me, it will be done.
Thank you. Last question, Mr. Chairman. Yes. Back to the Act. I noticed under Section 80, consequential amendments, that indeed Section 54 of the Criminal and Other Offences Procedure Act has been amended. And in amending, it says where the special prosecutor enters a nulla prosequi under subsection 1, the special prosecutor shall state reasons for doing so. what would you say about this? What's your observation here?
Well, this is what Parliament has said. Normally, when you enter nolli prosequis, you do. When the Attorney General enters nolli prosequis, it doesn't state reasons. But this Honourable Parliament decided that maybe the special prosecutor must be able to explain why he's entering it. He might have taken some cut and stated that the special prosecutor cannot withdraw a case he's prosecuting. You know, you can withdraw the charge, which is almost the same as a nolli prosequi. But you see, the act goes for nolli prosequi and left the other hand. You know, so there's that lacuna, which maybe in due time we will have to consider what we really want.
Right. I was going to ask you, do you think that we should add even withdrawal of a charge to?
I think it is cumbersome, you know, because if you bring a charge and then you realize that there's no evidence to convict, why will you? Look, in the first place, to charge a person is to put the fellow under stress, his family under stress, right? He has to go to expense to hire a lawyer to defend himself. The state has to expend money on the trial. A judge will have to sit. Prosecutors will have to be assigned, right? So if you start prosecuting and then it shows that some of the witnesses perjured themselves, right, or their evidence is not maintainable, why do you waste state funds to continue? You should be able to withdraw. If your hands are tied and you want to continue, you continue, you'll be convicted, and the state loses more. So I think that it is good for every prosecutor to have the ability to withdraw, because you see, that discretion has principles that govern it. You don't look for victims. You look for people who have committed offenses contrary to the national interest. So I don't think we should put it in law. Even for me, this whole thing about giving reasons for nolli prosequi, well, it's there, so we will follow it. Otherwise, I would have thought that the original position should have stood. But once it's in the law, it must be obeyed.
Very well. Obi, you are done. No, I had promised Honorable Helu after, and I'll get to you. Yes.